You should probably forget almost everything you've ever heard about business. All that advice to compete harder and move faster, it might be totally wrong. What if the real secret to success isn't about winning the game, but about creating a whole new game that only you can win? That's the core of Peter Thiel's playbook, and trust me, it's going to flip your whole perspective on its head. Okay, so this is the idea that starts it all. It sounds crazy, right? Thiel's point is that capitalism is all about accumulating capital, but fierce competition just erodes all the profits. So why would any true capitalist want to compete? The real goal, he says, isn't to compete. It's to build a monopoly. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to walk through what it means to create something truly new, why you should run from competition, how to be the last one standing in a market, the power of finding a secret, and finally, why the first few decisions you make are absolutely everything. First up, let's tackle the most fundamental concept of all, the huge difference between creating something and just copying something. Seriously, understanding this one thing is what separates the truly game-changing companies from, well, pretty much everyone else. So Thiel sees progress happening in two different ways. On one hand, you have horizontal progress or globalization. He calls this going from 1 to N. This is like taking a smartphone that already exists and just making a million more of them, maybe a little cheaper. It's copying. But then you have vertical progress or technology. This is going from 0 to 1. This isn't copying the smartphone, it's inventing the smartphone in the first place. It's pure, raw creation. And when Thiel says technology, you've got to understand he doesn't just mean software and gadgets. He means any new and better way of doing things. In his world, a true startup isn't just another app company. It's a group of people dedicated to solving a unique problem for the very first time. Now that is the 0 to 1 leap. It's kind of a spin on that famous line from Tolstoy, right? Every single successful company is successful in its own unique way because it solved a problem nobody had solved before. There's no magic formula to copy. But all the failed companies, they're all the same. They just failed to create anything new. All right, now for a really big, controversial idea. We're all taught that competition is great, that it's the engine of our economy. Thiel's take? Nope. He thinks it's a destructive trap and you should run away from it as fast as you possibly can.
I mean, just think about it for a second. When you're locked in this brutal fight with 5 other companies, you're all just driving down prices, spending a ton on marketing, and basically fighting over scraps. In that red ocean of competition, nobody makes any real money. Sure, the customer might get a good deal for a little while, but the businesses themselves, they're just barely hanging on.
And what's wild is how companies instinctively lie about their markets. A company stuck in competition, like a new restaurant, will tell you its market is super tiny to sound special. Oh, we're the only British food spot in Palo Alto. But a real monopoly, like Google, they do the exact opposite. They define their market as broadly as possible. Oh, we're just one small part of the global tech company market, to hide just how dominant they are and, avoid getting in trouble with regulators. So, your goal as an entrepreneur shouldn't be to jump into that rat race and run a little faster. It should be to escape it entirely. Don't aim to be just a little bit better than the next guy. Aim to be so fundamentally different that you create your own market, a space where you are the only one. That's a creative monopoly. This brings us to another piece of startup gospel we hear all the time: first mover advantage. Being first sounds amazing, but Thiel argues it's mostly a myth. What really, truly matters is being the last one standing. I love this chess analogy. A grandmaster doesn't just think about the first move. They're visualizing the entire game, all the way to checkmate. As a founder, you have to do the same thing. Don't just obsess over your launch plan. You need a plan for how you're going to dominate your market for the next 10, 20 years. Seriously, think about it. Was Google the first search engine? Nope. Was Facebook the first social network? Not even close. They weren't first movers, they were last movers. They came into a market, made a product that was so much better than everything else, and then built a fortress around it that no one else could breach. So how do you actually pull this off? Well, the strategy is basically a 3-step dance. Number 1, start small, like ridiculously small. Find a tiny, specific niche that you can absolutely own. Think about Amazon started only with books, or how eBay started with just Pez dispensers. Step 2, dominate that niche. Become the one and only choice. And then step 3, once you're the undisputed king of that small hill, you carefully expand into the markets next door. That's the real path. And that fortress you're building, your economic moat, it stands on 4 pillars. First,
proprietary tech that is at least 10 times better than the alternative. Second, network effects, where your product actually gets more valuable as more people use it. Third, economies of scale, so you get more efficient as you grow. And finally, a brand that's so powerful it becomes an identity. Okay, now we're getting to the real philosophical core of this whole playbook. Every great business, according to Thiel, is built on a secret, some unique insight about how the world works that most people have just completely overlooked.
This is Thiel's absolute favorite question to ask in an interview, and it's brilliant because it forces you to think outside of what's popular or conventional. A bad answer is something lots of people agree on, like our politicians are dishonest. But a good answer is a truth that's not obvious, something you believe in your gut but almost nobody else does.
Here's a little formula for what a truly contrarian idea sounds like. You're not just sharing an opinion you heard on the news. You are fundamentally challenging a widespread belief. It's all about seeing what everybody else is missing. That's where the secrets are hiding.
And this is how that big philosophical question becomes something you can actually build. Your secret truth, your contrarian insight, it points you directly to a valuable company that nobody else sees a need for yet. That is your 0 to 1 opportunity. All right, our final rule is a really important one. It's a bit of a warning, actually, because even if you have a great secret and a brilliant plan for a monopoly, you can still fail if you mess up the very, very beginning. This is what Thiel calls his law. And yeah, it's pretty stark, but it's critical to understand. The first decisions you make are like pouring the concrete foundation for a skyscraper. If you get it wrong, it doesn't matter how great the penthouse view is, the whole thing is eventually going to come crashing down. The founding moment of a company only happens once. Things like who your co-founders are, how you split up the ownership, what your mission is, these decisions have an almost permanent impact. They become the company's DNA. It's just like a country's constitution. They are incredibly hard, sometimes impossible, to change later on. So the lesson is painfully simple. You have to get them right the first time.
So let's just quickly recap the whole playbook. 1. Create. Build something that goes from 0 to 1. 2. Monopolize. Your goal is to own a market, not just survive in it. 3. Endure. Be the last mover, not the first. 4. Discover. You have to find a secret that everyone else has missed. And 5. Build it right from the start. Get that foundation perfect because you really don't get a do-over.
You know, when you really get down to it, this playbook is more than just a set of rules. It's a challenge. It's a call to think for yourself, to find those secrets hiding in plain sight, and to build something that the world has never seen before. So the final question, really, isn't for me. It's for you.